Hello, welcome to the Tavern Between Dimensions, a monthly podcast on all things D&D. My name is Carl Dudesh, and I will be your bartender for your time here today. Joining me for service is the Dungeon Master for the Explorers of Elsewhere, Dan Tyree.
Hello.
And International Mad of Mystery, Anton Bain.
Hello.
Hi guys. So, first episode of a new podcast. First and foremost, I think we really need to tell you guys what we're actually doing here today, because thank you firstly for listening, but who the hell are we? Well, as I said, we are a podcast about all things D&D. We're going to be breaking this down to segments for you to basically talk about the different aspects of D&D. For instance, we have a really cool segment called BYOB, where basically we're going to discuss different builds that we challenge each other to make. We have a section called the DM's Table, where Dan, a well-established DM, is going to basically talk about the different things that, different ways of being a DM, or the different sort of challenges you come across. We have the Players Round, which is basically something for more sort of me and Anton, who usually sits on the other side of the table, and the experiences we have as players, or the challenges we face. And lastly, we have Happy Hour, where we discuss any other business. But first, I think we should get to know the three people here today. So let's start with Dan. Can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself, Dan?
So yeah, as Carl mentioned, I am the current DM for the Cormier Echoes of War campaign over on the Explorers of Elsewhere channel. I started playing role-playing games way back when, about 12 years ago, when I was at university. And in my first long-term campaign, I had this troublesome player called Carl, who joined in, and just kind of gone from there. Yeah, over time, I've realised that role-playing games, D&D in particular, just kind of tick all of the performer, actor kind of boxes that I like ticking in my life. And it's just something that's become really, really important to me on many, many different levels.
And Anton, a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I first learned about D&D actually via Critical Role. I saw an Imgur post saying there's this new D&D show, and I'm like, all right, what is D&D? I don't know. And this was like early episodes, like around episode 8, 9. I started watching it, and I just fell in love with the game, the concept behind it, and I was like, wait, I need to get some of that. And I joined a meetup game, and Dan was at that meetup, and that's how we know each other. And he eventually became the DM for that campaign, and so I've been playing for 5 years now. Just a range of characters, and I've just been loving every single moment of it. So, and it's good to be here, talk about D&D.
Well, for myself, I sort of first heard about D&D through playing sort of online games. We actually sort of played City of Heroes for a long time, and I met a group of people who we actually met up in real life. And one of them was a D&D player, so he sort of introduced me to the concept of D&D a couple of years before I actually even started playing properly. So I had like one tester game, and then years later I met a very troublesome person in one of my jobs called Dan, who basically tried to start up a D&D group, and obviously had this pre-existing idea of what it was. So I ended up joining his campaign, pretty much played every week for 3 years non-stop after that. Apart from Christmas holidays, it was the only time we really had off. And about 10 years later, here I am still playing his games and running a few of my own as well. But yeah, I enjoy D&D. I enjoy making larger-than-life characters, and sometimes troublesome characters, it seems, like more recent examples. But I love D&D, and I think all of us, we've been playing long enough that we have some knowledge of how the game works, which is why we thought this would be a good thing to do.
Yeah, and we just like talking about D&D, so this is just another excuse to do so.
Exactly.
So mainly for that reason, actually.
We were having these conversations by ourselves, and we thought, well, do you know what? We'll torture other people with them as well. Yes. So that's why we decided to start this little project. But yeah, I think let's see if we can make a podcast.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. So our first segment today is BYOB. Anton, do you want to take it away?
Yeah. So BYOB is bring your own build. I like strange and interesting characters. I like building them. I like thinking about them. But I thought, why don't we each bring a character to the table that we think would be interesting to play or has some peculiarities about it, and let's just discuss about it. So today we'll be looking at dexterity-based fighters. So, get rid of that heavy armor, put down the maul. It's all about dexterity. So whether you're ranged or you're up there with a rapier and a dagger, I set ourselves a challenge to discuss and see what we could find.
None of that two-handed weapon shit, right?
No, get rid of that. It's all about that dex and see what we can make up. Dan, I think you have a character for us. What have you made?
I do indeed. So, yeah, it was an interesting build actually. I realised, perhaps in my simple monkey brain, that when I think of fighters, a lot of the time when they're dex based, you just kind of naturally gravitate towards ranged, right? Like whether it's probably a bow, probably even an elf, and just kind of exploiting all of the like archery, fighting styles, and so on and so forth. There was a part of me that thought no, because there are so many dexterity based kind of melee builds in the game, rogues and rangers and whatnot. Like, why can't the fighter be dex and melee, but also still kind of, in inverted commas, fighter? The character that I brought is a...
Give us the name. Give us the name, Dan.
So today I'm presenting Lonk.
Right. Just Lonk from the past, maybe?
Lonk, as you will all know from that fabled legend of Zelda, Lonk is a fighter through and through. Okay, so to start things off, Lonk is a variant human. There might be the slightest of pointy ears. Yeah, it might just be the light. I think it's fair to say that Lonk is a folk hero. Yes. Everyone knows the story of Lonk. And basically, in terms of stats, so obviously dexterity is going to be high, right? So using the variant human with the floating stats, I put +1 in dexterity. Lonk is also quite sturdy and tough because there are many trials that Lonk engages in. So constitution is also a 16. Strength and intelligence are at 10. Lonk notices quite a lot of stuff, so is going to be at wisdom 13. However, is kind of quiet, very rarely says anything, might make the occasional kind of grunt or shout in a fight, so we're going to dump charisma down to 8.
So you've pretty much maxed out dexterity and con.
Yes,
a bit of wisdom in there.
Absolutely. Okay. Hearty +3 bonuses in dexterity and constitution.
The wisdom is because there's a voice in the back of his head constantly telling him to listen and to look over here.
Well, it's funny you should say that. I mean, in terms of skills, the fighter doesn't give us all that many proficiencies. We get an extra one from being a variant human. We've gone for animal handling because Lonk is very good at horse riding.
Yep.
Athletics, because Lonk is very good at climbing mountains and doing rolls and all sorts and whatnot. And perception, because Lonk just happens to know where to look at any given point.
And your feat you took?
As a variant human, so we're going to open up with the medium armor master feat, which is actually a feat that doesn't get a lot of play time because in inverted commas it's kind of boring, but it allows you to get up to +3 dexterity bonus from wearing medium armor instead of +2, and you ignore disadvantage on stealth saves, on stealth checks.
So you're pretty much at the same level as you would be with heavy armor, but you don't have the stealth disadvantage. Precisely. So you can be a sneaky fighter.
A sneaky fighter. Well,
with high AC.
Lonk isn't necessarily kind of sneaky. Lonk's striding into battle pretty much with kind of the default fighter equipment and a few tweaks here and there. But it's striding into battle with a longsword and shield, both found out in the wilderness. The sword has this beautiful blue hilt. Found it in a rock in a forest, very bizarre, and also comes equipped with a trusty longbow. So one good thing about dexterity fighters is that if you're fighting with a finesse weapon like a short sword, I mean, you could fight with a rapier, but it doesn't seem very Lonk, does it? You now have that ability where you can very easily fight at either up close or at range with a combination of scale mail, which is still medium armor, a shield, medium armor mastery, and taking the defense fighting style at level 1. Lonk actually ends up at a hearty AC 20. Ooh. At level 5, which is where this build is kind of built to.
Meaty.
So again, that's pretty much you're in full plate with shield. You'd be at that level. So.
Yeah, and there is not a single plus bonus of strength insight. So
Pretty good.
yeah, so Lonk is a straight 5th level fighter. So, level 1, we pick up Second Wind, we pick up the fighting style defense option. Level 2, you get your action surge. At level 3, we pick up Battle Master as a subclass. It's a golden oldie, it's tried and tested, we
Yeah.
know it works.
Yeah.
And we've picked 3 maneuvers, and they're quite interesting, actually.
3 maneuvers, yeah, based off the D8 superiority dice that you start with. With a hearty Kia, we have lunging attack, which, Lonk is very well known for.
Yeah.
Lonk, as we were saying earlier, always just seems to know where to strike on an enemy, just notices things, has this kind of idea that maybe the big glowing eye on the baddie is probably like a weak spot or something. So we're going to go with tactical assessment, which is a newer maneuver from Tasha's. And then we're also going to go for distracting strike for all those times where you have to hit someone and then quickly roll out the way.
And lunging attack, then, does that increase your reach?
Yes,
correct?
Yeah, so it basically gives Lonk a 10-foot reach rather than a 5-foot reach.
And tactical assessment gives you advantage on checks versus an enemy, is that right? Or something
No, so
similar to that?
tactical advantage is actually a relatively out of combat feat, which it gives you bonuses to things like investigation, perception, and so on, which is something that you don't tend to see on fighters. Arguably, the most important thing about Lonk at level 3 is that Battlemaster also gives you proficiency in an artisan's tool, and recently we've known that Lonk has really kind of dived into cooking, especially out al fresco, out in the wild. So cooks utensils, seals that off. At level 4, we get an additional feat instead of an ability score increase. We're going to go with the Dungeon Delver feat. Here's the thing about Lonk, right? With a sword and bow, she's quite proficient. When you dive into these dungeons and you can just festoon yourself with magical items and magical weapons, bracelets that increase your strength, like grappling hooks that fling you across the battlefield.
Grappling hook is the one you really got to keep an eye out for.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
exactly. Get 2, it's even better.
Exactly. Yeah, you've got to live up to the Legend of Zelda in every way you can. And then finally, at level 5, Lonk unlocks her second attack per turn to really kind of start ramping up the damage. So it is, a lot of this build, I guess, does involve your DM being quite generous with your magic items, all of which have to be contained in chests with a music box inside. And you have to present it, both hands, to the rest of the party whenever you find it.
I'm actually a little surprised at your proficiency choice, because I thought at least you'd have chosen some sort of musical instrument, like an ocarina would be a very good choice.
I mean, the way I play it, it's definitely not proficient, so...
I actually see that and would wholeheartedly agree with that one.
So yeah, that is Lonk. Anton, what did
you bring to the table?
All right, so I also decided not to go for a ranged fighter. I thought that's too easy, that's too simple. I've instead gone for a bit of a combo. I'm known for multi-class, and I do like it. And I've gone for fighter rogue multi-class. My character's name is Quendar. They are a drow smuggler, probably part of Bregendirth, the Jarlaxle's gang crew of mercenary. If you're playing a Waterdeep campaign, this would be a good character to maybe look into. And so they're a fighter 6 rogue 2 multi-class. In terms of stats, I've got 12 in strength, 20 in dex at level 8, 14 con, 8 intelligence, 10 wisdom, and 14 charisma. Maxed out dex, con is where you put it at, around about 14, and then add a bit of charisma for just to have a bit more roleplay involvement. What else have we got? A drow obviously have dark vision, they're immune to sleep, got some nice little spells such as fairy fire and darkness to play around with. The fighter, I went with Battlemaster, as you did, Dan, because here's the thing about Battlemaster. I feel like all fighter subclasses should be erased, and then start out as a battle master, whatever subclass you
Ooh.
choose gets added onto that.
That's interesting.
That's if I had to change fighters, that's what I would do. But yeah, for me, battle master is one of the best.
Yeah, no, I have to
subclasses.
say most of my fighters have battle master in some degree, or even the battle master feat.
You just get so much, and it's just
Yeah.
really interesting. It makes the fighter kind of enjoyable to play. So you got this little toolbox you can play with, and that's really enjoyable. In terms of maneuvers, I chose 3, and I chose these very, very specifically. I chose riposte.
Yeah, very good one. I
So
love that.
yeah, if an attacker misses you with an attack, you can use your reaction to hit back at them and add superiority damage dice. This has a bit of interaction with rogues because sneak attack can be applied on your turn,
Oh.
right? Once per turn, but it can also be applied on your reaction, right?
Yeah.
Ooh.
So if you make a reaction strike, you can add your sneak attack damage to that. Just a little precision in the rules there that you might not be aware of. Quick Toss is also from Tasha's. It's a new maneuver. Basically allows you to draw a dagger or an axe and throw it as a bonus action. So you do have multi-attack because of the 5 levels of fighter. So you can make 2 attacks. If you happen to miss both of those, I would do a Quick Toss and try and get my sneak attack damage out. Get a lot of value with it. Just love that maneuver. I think it's great. It's very flavorful. Just being able to fight with a dagger, and then if you see somebody else, just throw a dagger at them. It's just great. And then trip attack. You can trip someone, and if they fall, then you get advantage. Again, another interaction with rogue. All kind of synergizes together to make a nice little fun combo.
Didn't think about the implications of riposte and sneak attack. That's didn't actually cross my mind.
Very good catch, actually.
Yeah. So, I mean, if I were to progress this build a bit further, I would probably take it further into rogue. I mean, you've got multi-attack with fighter, you're at 6, and I'd probably go at least 3 levels of rogue, and you could potentially go up to 5 and even further. So you can, I'd probably even make it an even split between fighter and rogue. Maybe get to 11 fighter just to get 3 attacks, and then the rest in rogue really is probably what you'd be looking at. Rogue is probably one of my favorite classes to multi-class into. I know we're working fighters, but you just get that dash as a bonus action, you can disengage, and then when you get into subclasses, you even get more.
Yeah.
This character actually allowed me to take a feat, just the way the stats laid out. So I took a feat at 4th level. I took the Piercer feat. So once per turn, I can re-roll piercing damage. So that works with my dagger and works with the rapier. And it gives me +1 dex. So that rounds up my dexterity at 18 when I was at level 4. And if you crit, you get an extra damage dice. So that's an extra d8 on a rapier. That's pretty much it. If I was playing a Waterdeep campaign, I'd be quite interested in playing this character. Play them probably quite neutral, used to being kind of chaotic evil, and maybe trying to change their ways as they've left the Bregendeath and adapted to their new companions. So there's actually also a lot of roleplay potential for this character because of the rogue proficiencies and the way you get expertise. I've actually put all the expertise in the charisma sort of stats, so you get really high deception. Intimidation is at +8, which is insane for a fighter, and I think I also have persuasion.
Yeah.
If it's not like a Waterdeep campaign, any sort of like urban campaign work just as well. And you could obviously just rename the background, I suppose, right?
Yeah, and actually doesn't have to be a Drow. I chose Drow because I like that the whole smuggler Bregendeath. You could just put any class there and probably still work.
I mean, what I find very interesting is that, you know, because you've got rogue and I suspect it's the expertise, but the stealth score is +11, which you don't expect to see on something with like kind of that much health. Because a level 8 rogue arguably shouldn't have around about 65 hit points. But yeah, so having that bag of meat appear behind you unexpectedly, it's interesting how versatile the fighter class is.
Yeah, I mean, so far most of the fighters that I've been making in other campaigns have all been Dex fighters as well. It really does change the dynamic, and it goes to show, even just seeing between these two different builds, that sometimes we look at these attributes and we don't quite see how we can use them in different ways. Like again with Dex and a fighter, because straight away you think Dex fighter, and as Dan said earlier, think bow and arrow. No, you can really make something quite powerful with it, and I've been really enjoying that in some of my builds.
I think, Dan, your build had a really, really high AC, so it just shows that you don't have to go strength to have a high AC. And what I was trying to do with mine was show that you can actually get that damage potential without going strength, right? Because if you're strength based, you would be doing 2 times 2d6 or 4d6 plus strength per round. Whereas here you're kind of making up that damage with that sneak attack.
Yeah.
And that's why I like rogue, is whenever you try multi-class, you can always put a bit of rogue because of those sneak attack dice that you can make up that extra damage.
And unlike rogue, the fighter gives you the opportunity, like more opportunities to apply sneak attack, whereas rogues kind of have a one shot per turn.
Yeah, if you're wielding a rapier as a rogue, you have one shot to hit.
Roughly what level would you slip into rogue?
You can take it at first level or at second level. It's really not too bad. What you really don't want to delay is your multi-attack. So you can delay it by 1 level because you have that d6 to catch up. So instead of 2d8, you'd be d8 plus d6. So it's not too bad, and you kind of miss out on the bonus damage. But I would do that just for the flavor. I think that's probably why I do it. But you can go 5 fighter and then into rogue. Yeah, there we have it. Those are our builds. So I think there's some potential there. In multi-class, we'll get some feats and get a nice a different type of fighter going out and about, which is what I really look for.
And if you're interested in playing either of these 2 builds, we will make them available in due course as a PDF for you to download, and maybe some notes even on when to take stuff. Keep an eye out for that, and hopefully Lunk or even a very sneaky rogue fighter will be joining a campaign near you soon.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. That's it for BYOB.